So I chose to talk about the labeling theory. So the reason I chose to talk about the labeling theory is because I found it the most interesting theory as I've read about it in my previous classes and the power that the labeling theory can have on people's lives. So the history of the theory. So the labeling theory was developed in the 60s by the Howard Saul Becker. In his book called The Outsiders, it is actually a version of symbolic interactionism. According to labeling theorists, people who represent the forces of law and order as well as conventional morality typically apply the deviant label to those who have allegedly violated the law or morality. Examples of the labelers include such as like police, judges, prison guards, psychiatrists, etc., people of power. And on the other hand, examples of the labeled include criminals, juvenile delinquents, drug addicts, mental patients, prostitutes, people of color as well. So generally the rich, white, or powerful and their representative, such as law enforcing agents, are more able to label others as deviant. So the poor, Black, or powerless are more likely to be labeled as deviants. That is why a poor or Black person is more likely than a rich or white person to be arrested, prosecuted, or convicted as a criminal, even if both have committed the same crimes. And the same goes for those to be declared insane or committed to a mental institution, even if both suffer from the same psychological conditions and so on. So I just talked about who labels basically people of power and rich people and the people and the consequences that come with being labeled is labeling is that according to like labelist theorists, being a labeled deviant can produce negative consequences for the individual who is being labeled. So one of the major consequences that I read about is that they are more likely to like see themselves as deviants, and then they continue to act that way and they don't change the way they are. So basically like telling someone like, you're a troublemaker, you're a bad person, like you keep causing problems, like you keep doing this and that, and then that's what they think they are. They're like, okay, well, I am like this, so I'm just going to be like this because even if I change, like no one else will believe me because I'm being labeled as this person. So when they're defined as deviant by others, they also are more likely to define themselves as deviant. Then they continue to engage in acts and finally, in some cases, become actual deviants. And people who are the labelers. So according to labeling theorists, labeling a person deviant tends to create like positive consequences for the community that applies the label. This an example that was like given in the book, which was the solidarity among Virginia Tech students increased significantly for like a couple months, like 6 months it said, following the mass murder on campus by a gunman in 2007. So it created like a kind of a bond in a way, like the labeler never like anything happens to the labeler. If anything, they're applauded for it. They're applauded for like shedding light onto the bad person or the criminal or the deviant. So the critique about labeling theory is that it ignores factors such as differences in socialization, attitudes, and opportunity, and that lead to deviant acts. Also, they also assert that it's not entirely certain whether labeling even increases deviancy. Like, there's no certainty of it. It's just like a theory. And another one is that can't explain causes of deviance, which is similar from the ones I just said. And deviant label does not encourage further deviance, which is just exactly what I said. And it underestimates role of the powerful. So it doesn't have that many critiques. I personally think the deviant behavior is very true. I feel like I've seen multiple people go through this. Even like when I was a kid, I feel like whenever my mother or someone like told me, "Oh my God, you're being so naughty," like, I feel like I would continue to be that way, and I didn't really stop. But when my parents spoke to me in a way where it didn't make me feel like that, I think I would stop more. Like, I would stop trying to be deviant or like, just naughty, like, how kids are in general. So I think it's true, I guess, to a certain extent, because people have different attitudes about so many things. So, like, maybe for one person, it actually might just help them and not want to be that person or deviant. And for another person, can just actually just make it like really bad. So it really depends on the person, as I was saying, the critique and like their attitude and the opportunities as well. So that was my presentation, and this was like one of the best theories in the book. This was my favorite one, and I really enjoyed reading about it a lot.